Hey, good morning, man. How you doing?
Afternoon.
Or afternoon for you guys. So if you guys don't know, this is Manny De Alba. Um Great guy. He's actually in Orlando, or where you guys at?
Orlando.
Orlando.
Orlando. Yeah.
So MLS is starting back up, Major League Soccer, and so he works with San Jose Earthquakes. So he's pretty busy right now, but he's gonna spare 30, 40 minutes for us. Um so it's recording. I'm recording it. And then we'll just go kind of for the people that are listening. Uh, I'm gonna upload this immediately after. It's gonna get transcribed and then get uploaded. So that way, if you guys have any further follow-up questions, then maybe I can address them. Or if Manny, if you don't mind sharing your email or something like that, or social media. So we're gonna be doing that. Lay of the land. Manny's gonna give his background, kind of what he's been doing, what he's done, how he got there, some interesting stories, kind of give you a little bit more info and a little behind the scenes look, and then we'll open it up the last probably like 8 or so minutes of questions. So if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat, and then I will be able to address them at the end. Good. All righty, you got the floor, Manny.
Alrighty. Good morning, everybody. My name is Manny De Alba. Like Edison said, I work with the San Jose Earthquakes. I'm the first assistant here, and I've been with the team for about a year now. And as you can imagine, things have been a little crazy lately. We made the move last week to Orlando, Florida, to try to get a season in, play a tournament. So we've been pretty rushed, pretty hectic, but figuring things out as we go. So everything's been good so far. So I hope everybody's doing well. And so just a little background on me. So I actually met Edison over at University of the Pacific in 2017. Did we get hired on at the same time, I think? 2017, I believe.
It was like literally like a week in between
Yeah,
that we
apart or
had.
something like
So
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's pretty close.
Yeah, so we started working there, 2017, and I was the head athletic trainer for the men's soccer team as well as the women's cross country and track and field team there. So we've known each other for a little while now, and it's been good working with him. Unfortunately, he left us, but things happen.
Hey Manny,
But
can you
what's up?
real quick? Can you give them just maybe a brief description on what an athletic trainer is? Because there's some people, they call an athletic trainer something, and they think it's a strength conditioning coach.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So, an athletic trainer, not to be confused with the strength and conditioning coach or just trainer. What we do is we do injury management, prevention, assessment. We do a lot of like illness diagnosis and that kind of thing. So we do a lot of like more of the sports medicine side. Um, and not necessarily the performance side. So a strength and conditioning coach will do more performance. What we do is more sports medicine. So managing injury and illnesses is kind of what we do, on top of doing rehab. So we, as an athletic trainer, what you do is a little bit of everything, in regards to the performance and the health of the athlete, basically. But yeah, so no confusion with strength and conditioning or just a trainer. So yeah.
Thanks, Manny. Thank you.
Yeah. So a little background on me. So I was a former soccer player, not as good as Eddie, but so I started playing. I was an athlete. Started playing soccer when I was 6 years old, and eventually, as I kind of progressed through, went to college. My first experience in athletic training was at the junior college that I played at, and there I took a course in athletic training and kind of fell in love with the idea of what an athletic trainer was. Initially, I wanted to go into physical therapy. However, I didn't really see myself working in that setting, inside of a clinic all day. So, once I kind of understood what athletic training was, I decided to go that route. So I spent one semester taking that course, enjoyed it, transferred to Sacramento State in 2004. And then from there, I started taking all the athletic training courses, graduated in 2007. So what happened at Sac State, I did start the athletic training education program as an undergraduate. Didn't complete the program, but I took a degree in exercise science in 2007. Once I graduated from Sac State, I took 2 years off from school, and I was working as a Spanish translator, so I didn't do anything within the realm of sports medicine, or anything like that. I was a translator for 2 years, and kind of what those 2 years did for me was it kind of solidified my drive and my passion towards athletic training. So I decided to pursue a master's degree. At that point in time, in 2009, 2010, when I applied for a master's program, there was only 21 programs in the country, entry-level master's programs. There were only 21 in the country, none of which were in California. So I had to look elsewhere. I applied at Texas Tech, Seton Hall University, and Florida International. I was at the point of accepting my offer at Florida International, and then what happened, I got competitive scholarships to go to Texas Tech. So I went to Texas Tech in 2010, did some clinical rotations there, and then graduated in 2012. And after 2012, applying for jobs was a little difficult. Coming out as an entry-level graduate, my aspirations were to kind of get into the pros or work at a top Division I institution. So as a new graduate, it was kind of difficult for people to look at me seriously and kind of wanting to hire me. So what I did, I applied for an internship at the University of South Carolina in 2012. I interviewed, and about a week later, I got an offer to move to South Carolina. So I took that position as an intern athletic trainer at USC. And then from 2012 to 2013, what I did, I worked as a physician extender. And so what that is, a physician extender is basically you work inside of an orthopedic clinic, and you're basically an extension of the doctor. What we did in the clinic was we did all the intake. So we go and see the patient, do a brief history on the patient, do a brief assessment on the patient. And by the time we come out and present that to the doctor, what we tell him, we should have a diagnosis, and he should already go into the room knowing what is wrong with the patient. So we had a lot of responsibility in the clinic. We had to code a lot of things. We learned how to do casting, how to do intake, how to do referrals. And so it was challenging, but it was great because we got to learn the clinical side of what we do and not just like the sports side. I also did some outreach athletic training work with 2 local high schools. And at one of the high schools, I was a head athletic trainer for that school. So we were spread thin in that sense, but it was very rewarding just in the sense that, you were in the clinic at 2 high schools, and you're working with like underprivileged athletes and that kind of thing. So it really, it was really nice to be able to kind of find that rhythm and, have people trust you. After South Carolina, I moved back to Texas. I was the head athletic trainer for the men's and women's soccer program at Lubbock Christian University, which is a small Division II Christian school in Texas. And I spent 3.5 years there. And then the last half of that year that was on contract there, I spent at an NAIA school called Wayland Baptist University, also working with men's and women's soccer there, track and field, and baseball. At these smaller institutions, you're really spread thin because there's not very many of you. There's 2, maybe 3 athletic trainers at best for a lot of sports.
Well, you did a lot of things as well. You were the strength conditioning coach and a professor.
Exactly.
You did all kinds of stuff. So
that's right. Yeah. So at Lubbock Christian University, I taught an entry-level athletic training course. I was also so my philosophy as an athletic trainer was to serve at to injury prevention and mostly injury prevention. So part of that was doing a lot of strength and conditioning with the athletes. So I was a strength and conditioning coach as well. I was also the team psychologist, team counselor, team dietitian, a little bit of everything. So as an athletic trainer, you kind of have to be resourceful. You have to, be willing to kind of, help the athlete in whatever, they need. but also being mindful of knowing that you can say no and tell them that you don't know something, but you will figure it out. So after Wayland Baptist, so I spent 4 more years in Texas from 2013 through 2017. And in 2017, I moved back to California to go work at University of the Pacific, where Eddie and I worked. And I spent 2 seasons with the team there, with my continued aspiration to wanting to get into the professional ranks. And so finally, I was able to break through a little bit. Last summer, the team reached out to me. The head athletic trainer reached out to me, and they were in need of an assistant athletic trainer because their assistant had just left. So after kind of vetting me, they decided that they would hire me. And so I've been with the team ever since for a year. And being in the professional setting is completely different than the collegiate setting. And I say that because there's different challenges. There's a lot of politics that are involved. There's a lot of money that's involved. And so I came in the middle of the season. And so I had to come in, like a deer in the headlights. It was a complete slap in the face. But my ultimate goal when I came in to this setting was to make sure that, first and foremost, I established strong interpersonal relationships with the athletes and the people that I was working with. From there, all the other stuff would start to come. And so to say that it was a challenge, to say the least, but I've now started my second season with the team. And as you all know, things are different nowadays, but it's been challenging, but we've been very flexible and we've been able to adapt pretty well to what's going on. So I've been with the team actually a year today. Is my 1 year anniversary with the team. And so, so that's kind of the gist of my history in, my progression as an athletic trainer, and where I started as a student and now where I am, reaching finally my ultimate goal to be in the professional setting.
Awesome. So we're just waiting on some other questions that come in, but
okay.
With having all of these experiences, right? One, I think, and can relate a lot, is having a lot of maybe different experiences to prepare you for where you're at right now, where maybe some of these young students are they're saying they got to go and do it right away. And kind of, I could apply that with my coaching, doing licenses. I wanted to go to the very top. And I remember one of the older instructors was like, hey, like, you're young, like you got to get experiences. You got to learn, you got to make mistakes.
Right.
Trial and error type thing. So with you, with certain experiences, what would you say was the hardest thing? Which I know you mentioned one was coming into a new environment, so frequently, because that comes with the territory with athletics and athletic training. But what do you think was the hardest thing, or maybe one of the most challenging things that you faced when you decided to do this type of profession? So
within the profession, like I said, you deal with a lot of politics at any level, really. My biggest challenge was, I like to be very direct with, it can be an injury process. It could be communicating to a coach. It could be communicating to an athletic director or an assistant or a colleague or something. I like to be very direct. Or if I see, things that can be progressed or be better within our organization, I like to address those and challenge, the people that are working with me in my organization to be better and to constantly improve and never be complacent. Now, the problem with that was a lot of times people took those challenges as like, you're an assistant, you shouldn't be challenging the status quo, basically. And so for me, I've had to learn to, pick my battles and bite my tongue. And so at times that can take a toll on you, like whether it be like mental health or just stress in general. That stuff kind of takes a toll on you, but it all comes, obviously we have to learn how to manage this. So that's why I've like learned, okay, what's really important to address? What should I just not have to say anything? What should I not have to address? And so that's kind of been the biggest challenge for me, is like having to learn to say the right things at the right times and to the right people, I guess you can say. So that's been kind of a huge challenge.
And it comes with experience, like you're saying, with certain times on when to do something, or maybe you didn't get the best timing, and then you learn from that experience, and then you apply it for
Right.
the next one.
The idea is that you just want to make sure that you're never complacent. Like that's the biggest thing. You should never become complacent and be like, I'm here, I'm where I wanted to be. That's it. There's always room for growth.
Yeah. On the next one, you said some of the one of the most important things for you, and with your experience, I know you touched base a little bit, but how important is the relationship building, the interpersonal communication, those types of things? I know when you would go out, we would treat it as a family. We'd go get some food, we'd go get some coffee, etc. How important is that in this type of environment, whether it could be school setting, because I know you relied a lot on your mentors, your professors, your colleagues, right? And also with people that maybe you didn't think were gonna maybe bring anything to the table, and you get humbled and you're like, oh wow, like this guy's pretty smart, or this lady's like really, really intelligent and brings a lot to the table. How can you just elaborate a little bit on how important that's been for you and your development?
Yeah, so that's like currently with this team now, like that, like it starts from the top with our general manager and our head coach. They talk about being a family, they talk about openly being honest and communicating. And so that goes in any relationship. But first and foremost, you have to establish those relationships. Just yesterday, my head athletic trainer and I were having a conversation about, there's been situations that we've been having to deal with here, and just being transparent with our athletes, because the moment you lose trust with them, it's going to be very difficult for us to do our jobs. And so, first and foremost, establish those relationships, and don't do it based out of convenience. Do it based out of being genuine. And I think, if you have that compassion towards people, that should come pretty easy. And so, yeah, definitely establishing those relationships early. Like I said, when I first started this job, that was my main goal, is to establish that relationship with the players. They may challenge you, and that's fine. Like that shows that they want to get to know you. They want to kind of test you, and you can prove to them, use that as a proving point to be like, I know what I'm doing, and this is why I got hired here. And so, definitely just, establish those relationships. Second of all, like work-life balance. Like you and I used to go, grab food or whatever, and we talked about work at work, and sometimes those, translated into our conversations, at dinner or whatever. But at the end of the day, we also talked about life and other things other than just work.
Yeah.
And so being very mindful that having that work-life balance is very, very important.
Yeah, you can't do everything on your own, or you can't.
Nope.
I feel like during this time, especially, how important and how maybe we neglect that just because it's so readily available. Like, oh yeah, I could go over here, I could go to this coffee shop, and when things get closed down, you see how that social interaction, that interpersonal connection that you're talking about is important.
Yeah, our general manager pretty much said it best. He's like, we rely on each other, and we need each other right now. And so basically, don't go mess this up for all of us, because I think our team has been doing a really stellar job at like keeping each other healthy and accountable, and it starts from the top.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I know as far as situations that you've been with, with your professional development all the time, always pushing the needle in the right direction, right, and relying on certain people. Within your many years of athletic training and sports medicine and just medicine itself, could you share a couple, maybe one or two stories that are pretty, maybe that remind you on why you did that? I don't know. I've heard some, but maybe you didn't want to share one. If you're able to share, whether it's, you saved the baby from the pool and you provided CPR, if you had any of those, or maybe a leg break, or maybe some type of rehab, you got an athlete back to maybe they thought they would never play again. Something that maybe resonates with you, and that's kind of gets you up and why you do that, or reinstills in a sense why you do that. So
yeah, so my very, very first clinical rotation at Texas Tech. So I had just moved to Texas 3 months prior to this situation, and my first clinical rotation was at Lubbock Christian University, where I later on got hired on as the assistant. And so I was working with men's and women's soccer programs there. Very, very first years that school decided to establish a soccer program there. And so they decided to place me there because they knew I had that experience with soccer and I understood the sport and the expectations and the demands of the sport. And so we traveled 2 hours away to a smaller town to play at like another university there. And so we had a women's match, and then right after we had the men's match. And about 20 minutes into the men's match, one of my left backs went in for a 50-50 ball tackle. They both swung and struck the ball at the same time, but my athlete's leg swung backwards and he just immediately dropped. And I never forget the cracking sound that I heard, because I was sitting right there, right in front of where it happened. And I could never forget, and just like vividly, I can remember everything that went on there. And so as soon as that happened, I ran and stood up next to the line, because technically as an athletic trainer, you're not allowed to enter the pitch unless the referee allows you in. But at that point, I was like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can see exactly what's going on right now. And I went on the pitch. And because the play had kind of moved on, and finally the linesman called off the center ref and told him, like, hey, like, there's an emergency here. And so I was already on the pitch. And so he had a tib fib fracture, and his leg was pretty much bent and kind of not facing the correct way that it should be because it was displaced. And so at that moment, it's just snap, go to work, take care of this kid, make sure that he doesn't lose his leg. And so, everything kind of, just transpired. Everything just happened. And so, we had our coaches like, go give me the splint bag. I had, some of my students were actually there at that game. And I was like, stand over him, because it was sweltering heat in Texas. Like, you cannot imagine how hot it gets there. But so I had like stand over him so that he has shade, try to, take his pulse, making sure he still had movement in his leg. And finally, I had him all packed and ready to go. The problem I ran into there was that the athletic trainer at the other school, again, me, new in Texas, had no idea where I was. I looked to the other athletic trainer, the host athletic trainer. I was like, look, can you call 911, instruct him to come to the soccer pitch? I don't know the address here. You should have an emergency action plan that allows us to transport this kid out of here. No help, no help, no help. And finally I looked at my coach. I was like, here, take my phone, call 911 and ask for the address and get them here now. Like, we need to get him transported. And so we finally figured out, our coaches were very angry because the school, the host institution, didn't really help us kind of take care of the situation. We took care of the kid, which was the most important thing, but we also needed to get him out of there. And so finally paramedics arrived. They transported him. I had one of my students, at that point, it's like, you have to go. I can't leave. There's still the rest of the match to be played. And so they transported him. I was on the phone with our head athletic trainer, our doctors, with the hospital, just trying to communicate all the information as there's a game going on. So it's like, again, that whole flexibility thing and just being adaptive to the situation. Finally, we got him taken care of. He was able to get transported 2 hours back to our home, and then had surgery. We did his rehab. He recovered. He did well. But the one thing that, I was still a student, I wasn't even a certified athletic trainer at that time. So the one thing, I shared that information with my cohort, and the one thing they were just like, what did it feel like? And I was like, to be fair with you, this is exactly what happened. It's like, that happened. I flipped on very quickly and just went to work and did what I was trained to do. And so it's like you almost like blacked out for a second to just, I got to get this done. Like this is real now, And so that was kind of one of the biggest, like, like injuries that I've had, but that was also rewarding because I was able to guide him through his rehab and then get him back on the field. So, which happens a lot with a lot of injuries, which is nice to see from injury all the way back to return to play.
Oh, that's yeah, man. That's a pretty crazy one. I know we've had when we were there, we had some concussions and maybe some minor things, but nothing where. Did anyone have to go to the hospital? No.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
remember, yeah. So also remember when we were in West Virginia, if you remember,
Oh yeah.
that kid got obliterated by one of our
Right.
players.
Yeah.
He was out. He was out cold for a few. I remember seeing everything, and I was up in
His
the
eyes rolled
sky
back.
box. Yeah, man, that was crazy. But being in those situations, have you ever had to use maybe your expertise in maybe another situation outside of sports, or like maybe that you saw an accident or something like that where you had to do that if you've done it before?
Yeah, I mean, like car accidents has been even within my own family. Like, there's been instances where there's a choking because we have so many little kids around my family. There's been like choking issues, like situations, that kind of thing, and it's like it's a little different with family, but it's like you're still trained to be able to handle these situations, and so you just kind of like jump into action a little bit. There's been sprained ankles or because we're all athletes, and so things happen and they're always asking me for advice or that kind of thing. The other thing too, like I said, it's not just injuries, it's also illnesses. Like, I can tell you, just recently, yesterday, I was able to diagnose someone with an appendicitis and they had surgery last night.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so it's like you have to just be on, you know and be able to catch these things to be able to help the people that you're trying to help.
One thing I know I'm going to say is that it is a thankless job a lot of times, and people should understand that we, especially like yourself and coaches, like we don't do this for the money,
No.
because there's other things that we can do. So if you're thinking about getting in this profession, yeah, you can open up your own clinic or be a head and be a top athletic trainer, but still understand that I forget who told me this. Maybe it was you quoted it on like being like what's servant leadership, right? Just serving others and just
Mm-hmm.
trying to provide care, and that's where it is giving and making sure that not only, like you said, not only on the physical side, but you also deal with the psych and social side where players are down, maybe they're depressed and they come to you and they just they just talk. And
Right.
that's why I know there's a lot of sports and psychology that gets together. And so I remember when I used to take the courses, I was like, why do I need this course, and it's very important because at the end
And
of the
now it
day,
makes sense.
it makes sense 100%. When maybe a player's playing bad or maybe a player's injured, a lot of it has to do is because maybe they're depressed, and then that leads into not getting enough sleep. And then from not getting enough sleep, they're already more injury prone.
Right.
And then they do get injury, and how do they get recovery, et cetera? They're sick all the time. So there's a
Right.
lot of, interconnections between, different,
Absolutely.
different dynamics that are going on. So we do have maybe like 5 minutes left. I did get a couple questions. So
Okay.
I'm gonna just put it here. So
Okay.
this is from Solis. What are some precautions you guys have taken while holding practices, conditioning, treatment sessions in the midst of the pandemic? He says he's a coach, and the AD had to discuss the possibility of returning to athletics in stages, not sure what is going to look like. So what
Yeah.
are some precautions, maybe some guidelines you guys have been following to be able to have these sessions, whether it's
Right.
group
So
practices or individual? So
yeah. So prior to us restarting, we had to get COVID tested. Once we got the clear, we started individualized sessions back in San Jose. But since this tournament, we had to move this tournament to Orlando. We had to get tested twice within a 24-hour period within 24 hours prior to traveling to Orlando, because once we're here, we're basically in a bubble. So we got tested there twice. We flew here. Once we landed here, we went straight to testing. We had to quarantine ourselves in our rooms until we got those results for testing. And then we got retested again. And so when we landed, we got tested twice. Once we got the all clears for that, then we can start kind of roaming and start our training sessions and that kind of thing. And then now we're getting retested every other day. And so it basically comes down to constant testing.
Yeah.
Like I said, our team has been doing very well with that. Here at the hotel, basically, if there's any infections, what happens is if they're symptomatic, there's a section of the hotel that's for just complete isolation if you're symptomatic, and they send them there. If you're not symptomatic, you just quarantine in your room until you get retested, and you have 2 consecutive negative tests. So a lot of testing is what.
So it's just a lot of testing just to make sure that if someone gets, whatever, they have to get secluded and have to be in a, whether quarantine for 2-3 weeks or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have two questions. The last 2, we got a little less than 4 minutes. So if it cuts out, guys, just letting you know, if you have any further questions, we can add it. What is your favorite thing about this profession? That's one.
I really like the travel, but my thing as an athletic trainer is, one of my philosophies is like injury prevention and rehab. So I love rehab. So the rehab part of it is like, you have to be really creative. And so that's one of the main things that I like about athletic training, is just being able to see someone from injury, be really creative with what they do to get better, and then get them back onto the pitch.
Awesome. Another question, this will probably maybe be the last one unless we get one more. What kind of challenges did you face as a physician extender, and were you nervous to misdiagnose someone?
The doctors there were really confident in our skill and what we had to offer. So I was never really nervous. I think initially, like with anything, when you first start something, it was like, oh, crap, I'm a little nervous. But the challenges there were really mostly having to do, they were transitioning to an emergent, like a electronic medical record system. And so having to learn that on top of learning all the codes and learning all the protocols there at the clinic, that was the hardest part.
Another one, how long have you been in this profession?
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I remember, how long ago was it when you were with Chivas USA?
Chivas 2011. I did it. Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, man. I remember you said that. And just to kind of wrap it up, what age did you know that you wanted to do this?
It was about when I was 20 years old. When I was at the junior college, about 20 is when I decided that I wanted to do it for sure.
You're just like, all right. Well, guys, do you mind if they get?
I can send you like an email, and if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yeah. So
sure. Guys, Manny's been, we were very fortunate to have Manny. Not many people have access to someone of his profession, his degree, and his knowledge. So first, I want to say thank you and behalf of the class, Clovis Community College, to be able to do this. And this goes from building those relationships to have that, because you never know who you're going to be sitting next to and talking to. So guys, if you guys have any questions, I will upload this link and I'll put his email in so that way you guys can talk. So thank you, Manny. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hope you guys are doing well over there. Stay safe, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.